OC. Viewer discretion is advised. Incoming transmission in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hey everyone, it's Courtney here from the Outcasted OC podcast, and welcome to the Monday Night Raw review. Let's get straight into the show. I don't want to waste any time with introductions because Raw was actually okay this week. It wasn't too bad. We definitely had some steps being made towards matches that we'll be seeing at Survivor Series, so let's jump straight into it. Raw this week actually starts off with us seeing Jade and Bianca arriving to the arena as well as Judgment Day. Now obviously we know that they are going to be going and having a women's tag match in the main event this evening, which I was actually super thrilled to see that they were main eventing the show, but we will talk about that when we get to it. But we actually started off with Gunther making his way down to the ring, and we have now found out that Gunther versus Damian Priest Part 2 is now official for Survivor Series, and Gunther hops on the mic and he says, all that matters is that I am still the World Heavyweight Champion. I don't like to live in the past, I like to look towards the future, and obviously Damian is next. Damian comes down to the ring and he's basically like, look, the whole world pretty much just saw the fact that you're going to go ahead and say all this stuff about me. You may as well just say it to my face. And Gunther continues to try and jab back at Damian, and he goes, that attitude. And they both have a bit of a war of words where Damian kind of interrupts and he overpowers a lot of this, but comes out looking really good in the end. He talks about his past and he talks about how, you know, Gunther was this unbeatable killer, but if it wasn't for Finn Balor, you wouldn't have that title around your waist, and that your vibe has faded and you are continuing to doubt yourself after you got pinned by Cody at Crown Jewel. And then Gunther tries to come back, but Damian has got him good and he says that you can't beat me, and he continues to egg on Gunther to try and get him to hit him, but Gunther can't bring himself to do it. And Ludwig comes out and commands everybody's attention and asks what Damian is doing here, and he tries to defend Gunther, but Gunther walks straight up to Ludwig and just covers his mic just like that. And everyone freaked out because obviously we know fully well that there's been some tension with Imperium as of late. And then Ludwig warns Damian, but before that, and then obviously that's when the mic gets stopped. Damian ends up dropping Ludwig and Gunther leaves the ring. We head backstage and have some interactions with certain superstars backstage. Let's quickly go through those. So Kathy Kelly is chatting with Damage Control. At this point, it's just Io and Kyrie, and they're talking about how they have a 6-woman tag match against PFC tonight, and how are they going to do that when there's only 2 of them. Dakota Kai has returned from injury, and I'm so excited to see her. She, first of all, looks really happy to be back, and I would love for her to just be back for a long amount of time. Now that we've got this women's mid-card title, I can definitely see her being in contention for that title as well. I'm just so happy that she's back, and it kind of looks like Damage Control has turned into the baby faces, which is actually quite cool to see. And then they start talking about how they are ready for Liv Morgan, and there's other business that they want to tackle, and that Dakota is pissed off at PFC because they took 3 months off her career. We get a couple of different veterans video packages throughout Monday Night Raw. Now, as a New Zealander, I don't really know much about the US veterans, so but that's totally fine. And there's a moment where Kofi is talking to Truth backstage, and they start talking about the tag match that happened a couple weeks ago, and Kofi wants to thank Truth for helping out. He starts talking about Xavier, but Xavier's actually like right behind them, and he can hear everything that's being said. And then Xavier comes in and interrupts, and then we see Pete Dunne come in and interrupt, and it basically sets up a match for later on in the evening. After all this, we head back to the ring where we have the first match of the night, which is Damage Control taking on Pure Fusion Collective. Now, Io and Zoe both start in the ring, and they have really great in-ring chemistry together. I'm super happy that they started off. Zoe ends up dropping Io, but Damage Control is in sync throughout this entire match, and Kyrie is on fire. Shayna's interfering from ringside whilst she's not in the match at that point in time, but after the commercial break, we end up seeing Shayna and Dakota both in the ring, and they just are brawling back and forth. Dakota's come back stronger and fitter and better than ever with a whole bunch of new moves in her arsenal, and she's looking really good in the ring. We end up seeing Shayna go for Dakota's leg, and then Damage Control coming in to aid Dakota. Io hits the moonsault and they secure the win. The SmackDown recap from last week, obviously everything that happened with the Bloodline, and we end up finding out that there needs to be a 5th member for this War Games team, and everyone's like, look, we've exhausted all of our options, we've asked everybody on Raw and SmackDown, we don't really have any friends here, like what are we gonna do? Sammy's like, leave it with me, I've got somebody who I can ask mask. So pretty much when it comes to Jay, Jimmy, and Sammy, this entire episode of Monday Night Raw is spent with them talking to certain people. Go back to the ring, we have a super quick match between Pete Dunne and Kofi Kingston. This was a really awesome match. Both of these guys got to show a lot of their great moves, and it was just really exciting and fast-paced. Pete comes in strong. Kofi ends up reversing the pace in the match, and he hits a really nice drop kick and ends up flying over the ropes. After the commercial break, Pete is in control using joint manipulation, but Kofi gets super fired up. Pete turns the tables and Kofi hits a Trouble in Paradise. There's a moment where Xavier's ringside and he interrupts and he's trying to interfere in the match, and he's trying to tell Kofi, you've got to do this, you've got to do this, you've got to do this. And then Pete ends up using that as a distraction, hits the bitter end, secures the win, and Kofi and Xavier are arguing after the match as they are leaving the ring. We head backstage where we see the Judgment Day are in the clubhouse, and they are talking about how obviously Liv and Raquel are going up against Jade and Bianca later on in the evening, and Finn comes in and he's upset because Dom couldn't win the contendership opportunity when it came to last week for the World Heavyweight Championship. Obviously the girls are talking about how they're going to win the tag titles, but Finn's like, well, we've got everything except for the World Heavyweight Championship, and if it wasn't for Dom screwing it up, and there's some definite cracks forming within the Judgment Day as of this episode. Finn's talking about how they're all family and family sticks together, and they're actually asking Finn what Finn was doing during the match where Damian and Dom and Sheamus and Seth Rollins were all in there, and he was like, I was actually helping out when it came to the War Raiders, blah blah blah. Basically, Finn Balor is just an absent father at this point. And then we see that Bronson Reed is backstage. He's going to be making his way out to the ring, and we see Jade and Bianca cut a video package promo on Raquel and Liv. And when we come back from the commercial break, Bronson Reed makes his way down to the ring, and he says that he's out here to say that Seth is one hell of a competitor, and he beat me at Crown Jewel, but I'm not a competitor. I am a monster. I took out everybody last week too, and I'll put you down for good. He said, Seth, if you want revenge, I'm honestly just going to wait here. Come find me. Seth Rollins runs down and they get into a massive pull-apart brawl. Just a whole bunch of security comes out. Adam Pearce comes out, and it's absolute chaos. Then we have a commercial break, but when we come back, we get to see a quick recap of the brawl in case you missed it before the commercial break. And Adam Pearce and Seth Rollins are arguing backstage, and he's like, look, you know what I want. Just give me what I want. And Adam Pearce ends up granting Seth Rollins another match against Bronson Reed for next week. Sammy comes in after this happens, and he starts talking about how he wants Seth Rollins to be the fifth guy for the War Games team. And Sammy has a pretty convincing argument. He goes ahead and says, look, I know how much we've worked together, and I know how, family is super important, and how there's a really tight bond between me and Roman, and obviously there's a really tight bond with you and Roman too after everything that's happened. And Seth Rollins pretty much just rules it out. He's like, I don't want to. Look, I appreciate you, Sammy, but I'm definitely not teaming up against him because we worked so hard to take him down. I don't want to work with him to build him back up again. And Seth Rollins is 100% allowed to feel that way. I'm a Seth Rollins girly till the day that I die. I know how much crap that man has been put through by Roman Reigns, and if Seth Rollins was to go ahead and team up with Roman again, I do not think I would be super thrilled. I would probably want to hit him on the head and be like, what are you doing? Following this, we head back to the ring where we have a match that goes down between Damian Priest and Ludwig Kaiser. Again, on the shorter side of things, but still action-packed nonetheless. From the beginning of the match, Damian overpowers Ludwig, and then Ludwig ends up changing the pace, and after the commercial break, Ludwig is still in control, and he ends up dropping Damian. He chops him as well too, but Damian finds his feet and finds the pace, reverses course within the match with a broken arrow, and then Ludwig goes for a super quick roll-up, but then we see a couple of clotheslines coming in from Damian and a South of Heaven to secure the win. So Damian has just beaten Ludwig Kaiser, and then Gunther and Damian have a stare down. Damian's in the ring. Gunther is down on the ring ramp, or the entrance ramp, I should say. And then Bron Breakker is catching up with Kathy Kelly. We got to see a little bit of a clip from the Speed Championship that took place, and Kathy was asking about that, and obviously he was wrestling up against Sheamus, and he goes ahead and he says, look, the Speed Championship does interest me, and he calls Sheamus a bonehead, and then Sheamus comes in and he calls Bron arrogant. He says, I'm going to kick your ass next week. Make sure you shine that Intercontinental Championship because I'm taking it off of you. Jimmy comes in and asks Bron if he's got a second to talk. I found this very interesting because I'm like, either he's asking about that Intercontinental Championship or he's asking if he wants to be in the War Games team. And I really would love to see the second part of what I've just said happen. I feel like Bron Breakker would be a freaking animal, honestly. So good. Then we get to see there's a bit of an interaction with the Final Testament backstage, and Miz obviously has come back from being kidnapped by the Wyatt Six. He talks about how he wants to take a leave of absence from WWE and how he needs to take care of his family and he needs to take care of himself. Karrion is not happy about this at all, and he's so angry. He just wants Miz to tell him where the Wyatts are, but Miz can't tell him. So the entirety of Final Testament go ahead and drag Miz out to the ring. Karrion attacks Miz and continues to ask him where the Wyatt Six are. Then the Wyatt Six music hits, the lights go down, and we obviously get to see the entrance take place. And then there's a moment where Miz takes out Eric Rowan, and both of the factions end up brawling with each other. And at the end, Miz and Karrion are laughing and hugging. But then when Karrion and the Final Testament are walking away, Karrion's like looking behind him because Bo's still looking at him, looking real confused. And I'm interested to see where this goes. I like the fact that Nikki Cross and Scarlett are going to get some in-ring time. I love Scarlett Bordeaux. I feel like she needs some more in-ring time for sure. She's one of the better wrestlers that we have in like a managerial role as well too. So I'd love to see that. If we've got this mid-card title, I'd love to see her as a mid-card champion. Kathy Kelly's running backstage because she's trying to catch up with Seth Rollins before he leaves. And she's like, look, I know that you've got the match. I'm excited for that, but can you just go into a little bit of detail about that? And Seth Rollins looks off into the distance and he goes, give me a minute. He continues to walk, and Solo and the Bloodline are in a car in the car park and they want to talk with Seth Rollins. And so they stop him, and Solo asks Seth Rollins to be the fifth man of his team. And Seth Rollins is like, look, Solo, we've never really known each other very well. I know that I don't like Roman Reigns, you don't like Roman Reigns, but I don't want to join forces with a wannabe Roman Reigns. And Jacob Fatu is standing right next to him, and he like starts going like about to launch on him. Solo holds him back, and I'm like, oh, interesting. I like that. I like that they're putting a whole lot of will Seth, won't Seth kind of intrigue within the storyline. Because, I mean, Seth Rollins has a reason to be on both teams, if I'm being honest. He has a real reason to be a part of Solo's team because obviously he's never gotten along with Roman Reigns after the Shield and everything that's recently happened. But he's got a reason to be on Roman's team because of Sammy as well too, and a lot of the inner turmoil that has been caused by the Bloodline as well. So super interested to see where this one goes. We finally make our way back out to the ring where we have the main event, which is Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez taking on Jade Cargill and Bianca Belair for the WWE Women's Tag Team Championships. This was a good match all in all. I really enjoyed that this was the main event, and I enjoyed that all these women got their time to shine. Bianca was looking so strong in the beginning of the match, and then Liv ended up reversing this really quickly. Jade goes and attacks Raquel ringside, and then there's a moment where they're setting something up, and Jade and Bianca look like they're about to collide, and then we hit a commercial break. But when we come back, Jade comes in and she ends up demolishing Liv. She hits the Jaded, but Raquel stops the pin from happening. Then we see Tiffany and Nia run down, and Nia ends up attacking Jade. We see Raquel hit the Tahana Bomb, and Bianca breaks up the pin before it hits the 3 count. Naomi comes down to neutralize the situation, and she attacks both Nia and Tiffany. We end up seeing Bianca hit KOD on Liv Morgan, and they secure the win. So we still have Jade and Bianca as the tag champs. But towards the end of the match and after the match is where these things really kick off, and I have a little bit of a theory going on here. So Nia comes in, she absolutely cleans house. Io Sky comes down, and she gets involved, and then we end up seeing like a whole bunch of just brawling between all these women, and towards the end we end up seeing Jade, Io, Bianca and Naomi all looking strong at the end. Could this be War Games? I'm not even joking. Could we see Liv and Raquel with Nia and Tiffany taking on the big three and Io Sky? I feel like this could be a really cool thing because obviously we know that the tag champions have a bit of an issue with Liv and Raquel, and we know that Io is the number one contender for Liv's title, and we obviously know that Nia and Tiffany have an issue with Jade and Bianca as well too. I feel like this could potentially be a War Games scenario. Maybe this is just me, fantasy booking too much, but I would love to see this. And that brings us to the end of this week's Monday Night Raw review. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, please make sure you go ahead and support the channel by liking the video, as well as commenting something down below that you enjoyed about Raw this week. While you are there too, you should absolutely subscribe to the channel if you have not done so already. We post regular NXT, SmackDown, and Raw reviews every single week with different members of the Outcasted OC podcast reviewing it for you guys, as well as doing weekly episodes of podcasts when it comes to WWE and predictions. So we'd love to have you a part of the Outcasted family, so if you have not done so already, please subscribe. While you're there too, you should check out the description down below. You can find all of the links to Outcasted on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok, as well as all of our personal social medias, so you can keep up to date with what we're doing when we're not posting on the channel. I believe there is an NXT review coming in from Reese potentially this week, as well as we are doing a podcast on Thursday, which is going to be a pop culture episode. Unfortunately, I will not be on the podcast this week as I am away for a friend's wedding, but I will be back next week for the Raw review and for the podcast after as well too. And there should be a SmackDown review coming in later on as well this week too. That'll be very interesting to see what happens on SmackDown, and if you want to know what happens, check in for the review. I've been Courtney from the Outcasted OC, and I hope you guys have enjoyed the video, and I will see you guys in next week's review. Bye guys.